Hi everyone and welcome along. Now sometimes you just want to fill a page with blobs of watercolour and you don't really know where you're going with it, but actually that's the perfect starting point to create a beautiful meadow scene which will turn into a really lovely card design. This week we're kind of doing back to basics with flowers on here, so this is going to be a gorgeous little panel of colour, meadow flowers that will turn into a great card, but also be a really satisfying exercise to just build up your confidence when it comes to flower painting. So grab your paints and let's get started. Right, I've got a 5x7 inch piece of paper here, and what I've done is I've drawn just a pencil line about a centimetre in from the side. And what we're going to do is we are going to paint a lovely full page of flowers, but we're going to do it with not too much focus on the finished result. And what I mean by that is I want you to paint along with me by first off choosing some cheerful colours. So I've got Imperial Purple here, quite diluted. And I am starting by painting little clusters of blobs which are going to turn into flowers. So here's some permanent rose, and we're going to do blobs of different shapes and sizes. And I've got them all on a diagonal. You could do this going straight up. I quite like how, you know, as a left-hander, obviously the diagonal is easier for me going this way. You could do it the other way if you wanted as a right-hander, but I'm just filling up the page with blobs, essentially. I think we'll do a bit of opera rose, but I think we'll have quite a lot of pink by then. So the only thing to think about is to maybe make slightly different shapes with each set of blobs. And you can see I'm doing clusters. Okay, I'm going to do a bit of orange, and this time I'm going to do some long, thin dashes. Well, they're not dashes, they're dabs and dots, aren't they? And we want to fill up the page to a point. We don't want it like completely full so that you can't move for other things. But what I like about this exercise is I think if you can be just focused on enjoying putting some colour down on the paper, and at this point not really knowing what it's going to end up as. So I've got some cadmium yellow and some fairly scribbly little clusters of dashes. And don't forget about the other side of your palette. Cobalt Blue Deep's a lovely one. Now I might just start doing one or two that might look a little bit more like flowers, but only a little bit, and there's no sort of formal pencil guide here. I'm just sort of seeing how I go. But one thing that is important is I'm keeping everything quite diluted. It's nice light and bright spring meadow, but a meadow of blobs. That's all dried, and now we're going to add in some greenery. Again, it really needs to be diluted and fresh and bright, so I'm going to make sure my colours aren't too concentrated. So we can do that in the palette by just getting the water in there and getting our consistency, and then we can add it to the page. So I think I'm going to start with a size 2 brush. It's going to be a combination of painting in sort of some more sort of stem-like lines like that, and some more just general sort of green leaf shapes. So I'm going to try and sort of weave in and amongst everything, and I think I will do some sort of colour blends between the greens, but I'm still keeping it sort of cheerful and simple, and on the diagonal line as well. Almost a bit like leopard print at this point. The idea is we want to fill up this page, and that's why I've done that border around the edge, because I rather like the idea of the visuals of having this really full, quite sort of mad page contrasted with a rather neat, crisp border. Now I think that looks pretty lovely just as it is, but the whole process of this little exercise is to just show you how we can firstly enjoy just making marks on a page, and secondly how easy it can be to turn something very abstract into something a little more recognisable. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just use the concentrated version of each paint colour to create something a little bit more akin to a flower. Now, I have no idea what kind of flower that is, but I know that it works in the scheme of this painting, because I've basically created like a really long tulip, I suppose. But here's why it's really important to do your first layer really diluted, because here you can't really see my detail. So for that one, I'm going to take a bit of alizarin crimson and just darken down my red. But ideally what we want to be able to do, there you go, is just create detail purely by putting the more concentrated colour on top. But there will be instances where that doesn't quite do it, and you need a little bit of help. And we're going to do that for the green as well, so that will mean just sort of a few simple lines at times. You'll notice I've put in 1 or 2 little ferns, maybe a bit of a dash like that. You could always, if you wanted, add in a few leaf lines, but I really encourage you to keep it simple. Best thing to do, start at the top corner and work your way down. If you're right-handed, probably that way. So I'm just working my way down. At first you might find it a bit sort of overwhelming that there's lots to do, but you soon settle into a rhythm, and what's great is you start to just get all the repetition of the things you've already decided upon some detail for. So let's have a look at some of the things that I've painted in. So we've got these blue flowers, just using curves around the petals and then a few dots. The really important thing with this piece is not to overcomplicate your patterns. So we've got some imperial purple swirls here that look a little like roses. And you can see that it works very nicely, having been done in a very dilute tone the first time round. I've got some permanent rose here, and I could just do a few sort of brush strokes around the bottom. Almost look a bit like proteas with that. The orange sort of foxglovey type thing, delphinium type thing, just a few concentrated little curls of orange. Looks great. So yeah, just keep going, and don't forget about your leaves. I'd say don't do every single one. It's almost hard not to do every single one sometimes, but I assure you it's okay, because you will miss some. And some can have leaf lines, but keep it simple, is what I will say. So I just went around and rubbed out the pencil line border, and what a beautiful little collection of colour. A beautiful meadow, but all we did was put blobs on the page, wasn't it? I mean, I think that's just a lovely, lovely exercise to build your confidence, to know that you can paint flowers even if you can do very little more than chuck a blob of colour on the page. Watercolour is all about enjoying yourself, enjoying the wonder of what it can do for you. So I encourage you to check out the rest of our tutorials on the channel. There's loads of really beginner-friendly stuff like this that makes you look like a complete pro and a very trendy watercolour illustrator, and that's what we're all after, isn't it? So don't forget to follow on by subscribing, comment, like the video. It helps us be shown to as many people as possible. We want to spread the word about the wonder of watercolour. So thanks so much, and I'll see you again next time. Bye!